What's up, guys? How are you? Welcome into a Tuesday morning episode of the Daily Juice Podcast. My name is Matt Perrault, with you every single morning on the BettingPros YouTube channel and wherever you guys get your audio podcasts after another losing day. This has not been going all that well, I will admit. Somebody said, Matt, you've only had one winning day over the last 9. Not true. Had 2 winning days over the last 9. Not great. If you push it back out to 11 days, it's 4 winning days in 11. Not good. But overall, in the month of February, we're down. But we're not like crazy down. We won, I believe what it was, 10 units in January. So we were up 10. Now we're down 4 units on the month. I'm not going to win every day. I'm not going to win every week. I'm not going to win every month. That's how this goes. And I'm not saying this person was angry or mad. He said, Matt's cold. Fade his place. I don't mind it, okay? I'm getting into trouble by betting anything but college basketball. Baylor, easy W. We got that right. The North Carolina bet, I mean, when 2 key players from Miami get scratched an hour before the game, I mean, what... I bet overnight, right? I mean, it's just one of those things where sometimes you're just at the mercy of the way things fall. And so when Miami loses 2 players, and they fought really hard, I'm not saying that the game would have gone over if those players played. I don't know. It's impossible to know, but it stunk, the 2 key players, because maybe Miami wins the game. I mean, they covered easily, 14.5 points, covered it, lost by 4. But North Carolina scored 75 points. Team total was 85.5. So if you played that missed as well. So just it followed the trend. Both those teams were under teams, but Carolina had been an over team over the last 3 games at home. They really had done a great job, but Miami didn't play up tempo. You know, Miami slowed the game down because of the lack of players, limited possessions, and the game went under by a ways. So got that wrong. But we got the Baylor game right, and then the hockey play missed because it finished 3-2, Islanders and the Devils. Sorry, Islanders and the Stars, 3-2 win for the Islanders in overtime. Bruins just went over and lost to the Kraken. Bruins went 1-0-3 on that road trip, by the way. Now, they're getting points with those overtime losses, but, woo, baby, not good. Another push. Our guy, Chris Otto, O-T-T-O on Twitter, at PSU Otto. He's the one that gives us great stats on hockey. He's been playing the second period for the Dallas Stars over. That has hit 17 consecutive times. Over 1.5 goals, second period for Dallas. 17 straight. That's incredible. So put that in your brain. You may want to jump on that train because that's been a wagon for 17 straight. But also, if you look at the way the Bruins have been playing, I mean, they've been playing draws. It's like plus 250, 3-1 sometimes for a draw. That means the game ends in regulation tied. The Bruins just did it 3 times in 4 games on this road trip. It's pretty remarkable. But they lost 3 of those games, but it doesn't matter who wins the game if the game winds up being tied. So I went and did a little research on that just to kind of see where I'm at. So 2 of 9. 2 wins in the last 2 winning days in the last 9. That's no good. But 4 units down for the month, not awful. More college basketball. We're going to keep on betting college basketball until I can't bet college basketball anymore, just because college basketball has been very profitable and it's been my best sport so far. Hockey, I like betting hockey a lot. I'm going to look to see some other things for hockey. I'm not seeing the board right, obviously. In the NBA, I'm not betting an NBA side for the rest of the regular season. I may bet player props. I probably will bet player props. And I'll probably bet totals, but I am not betting sides in the NBA until we start the postseason, and then I'll get back to be involved when we get maximum effort and every player playing, every player locked in. We'll then bet on the postseason, but not in the regular season. There's no need to do it in the NBA. This podcast is being brought to you by OmahaSteaks.com. They have given us a customized URL to track when you guys go there to give us credit for sending you there. It is OmahaSteaks.com/juice. There, you can sign up for a subscription. On that subscription service, they will give you 10% off every single every single purchase you make. Plus, they will give you free burgers for life for subscribing. 100% money back guarantee on all orders. OmahaSteaks.com. Go there using OmahaSteaks.com/juice. All right, so I've been betting the last couple of days, like the higher profile games, and the higher profile games haven't really gone all that well. We've been splitting a lot, like two plays going 1-1. So I'm going to go off the high profile games are Houston and Cincinnati, BYU and Kansas. Okay, these are big games in the Big 12, a lot of attention. Even in the Mountain West, Nevada's game tonight, there's a lot of attention on these games. I'm going to go off the board here a little bit, okay? Let's start, and you're going to hate me for all of these plays, but let's start with Syracuse at home against Virginia Tech. According to KenPom, it's a 1-point win. Now, Syracuse at home just beat Notre Dame 88-85. They beat North Carolina at home 86-79. They lost to Clemson, but they beat Louisville before that. They're 3-1 straight up over their last 4 home games. When you take a look at the way that Syracuse has been playing against the number at home, they are just 6-9. They are 6-11 ATS overall in the ACC. But Virginia Tech on the road is 3-10 this year, ATS. Drilling down, it's pretty bad. Against Pittsburgh on the road, 3-point dogs, lost by 15. Against North Carolina, catching 11, lost by 15. Against Notre Dame, laying 5.5, lost by 8. Against Miami, catching 4, lost by 8. You have to go all the way back to the game against NC State on the 20th of January to find a game in which Va-Tech won on the road. But before they did that, they lost to Virginia by 8 as 4.5-point dogs. They lost to Florida State by 3 as 1-point dogs. And against Wake Forest, catching 4.5, they lost by 23 points. They have one win on the road all year this year, and that is a road win at NC State. 4.5-point dogs, won by 6. They've lost every other game. Syracuse just beat Notre Dame by 3. They were laying 7, didn't cover, but they won. They beat North Carolina, like I mentioned, catching 8, won by 7. They beat Louisville by 2. They were laying 8.5, but they still won the game. Lost to Clemson, but they beat NC State as 1-point dogs at home, won by 12. Did lose to Florida State, but they've won 3 of the last 4 straight up. This is more of a fade on Va-Tech than a bet on Syracuse, but I'm going to lay the 1. Syracuse -1 for 1.1 units. Second bet, George Mason at Fordham. You heard me. George Mason at Fordham. Number is 2. George Mason on the road this year is 7-5 ATS. Fordham is 4-11 at home against the number. Fordham is 6-8 in conference ATS. George Mason is 8-6. George Mason just lost by 21 points to Loyola Chicago, laid an egg, snapped a 3-game winning streak for them, beating Dayton, George Washington, and Davidson on the road, catching 1. They lost to Loyola Chicago at home as well. That team's got George Mason's number. They lost to UMass on the road by 1, but they covered. They lost to St. Joe's on the road, but they covered. They lost by 13 to George Mason on the road, lost to Richmond by 7. But again, this is looking at Fordham and what Fordham has done this year at home. Now, they're coming off of a big win. It's a fade on and selling high on Fordham. They beat Duquesne as 3-point dogs. They won by 12. Before that, against St. Bonaventure, catching 3.5, lost by 18. Against VCU, catching 4, lost by 15. At home against Richmond, catching 2, lost by 14 points. Against Loyola Chicago, catching 2, lost by 4. Against Davidson, -2.5, laying 2.5, lost by 10. Against LaSalle, laying 5. They lost by 5. Okay? His team at home is not good. And yes, they just won and covered against Duquesne. But I'm going right back into a fade situation here for Fordham at home. Now, according to KenPom, this is a 4-point win here for George Mason. Numbers 2, opened at 1.5. Opened light. This number's going up. I'm laying the 2. George Mason, -2 on the road. Short number on the road. It's tough to lay points on the road in college basketball, but Fordham is bad at home. We're taking George Mason, the better team here, to get a win. It's -2. Just get a W. And this is a team coming off of a loss, like I mentioned, to Chicago, 80-59. They're going to be ticked off. They're 18-9 overall, 7-7 in the Atlantic 10 Conference. Got to get going here. They're most likely not going to get an at-large bid, but they got to get going here and get a W for sure. I think they're a better team than Fordham. George Mason, -2 for 1.1 units. And the last game that we're going to run to is in the Big Ten. We're going to talk a little bit about Wisconsin on the road here up against Indiana. Line is 5, according to KenPom, but 4.5 at the sports books. So a little bit of half point of value there. 75-70 the win. Look, Wisconsin needs a W, okay? They got to get going. They're 18-9. They're 10-6 in the Big Ten. They're in the tournament as of right now, but you can't lose to an Indiana team, even on the road, who has just basically packed it in. I mean, Indiana is just god-awful. They've lost 4 in a row. They've lost 5 of 6. They're 6-10 in the Big Ten. And I know Wisconsin is as bad as Nebraska when it comes to winning on the road, but even Nebraska went in there and won by 15 points in the last home game for Indiana. They killed them. Went to Penn State. They lost 83-74. I mean, you look at Wisconsin, and I know you go, Matt, on the road, they're god-awful. They lost to Iowa in overtime, 88-86 in their last game. They lost to Rutgers on the road. They lost to Michigan on the road. They lost to Nebraska on the road. They did beat Minnesota on the road, but Minnesota covered that game. They lost to Penn State on the road. Their road wins so far this year against Ohio State and against Minnesota. Other than that, winning on the road just hasn't happened. But, again, like the Syracuse game being a fade on Va-Tech, this is more a fade on Indiana. Home loss to Nebraska, home loss to Northwestern, home loss to Penn State, home loss to Purdue. I mean, there's nothing more to play for them. The season's over. They're playing out the string. And I don't think they're going to be able to handle a Wisconsin team that needs this W. Number is 4.5. I'm going to lay the short number, 4.5. All 3 favorites. Normally not a great recipe here, but with the short numbers, I'm okay. I'm okay with laying it here. Teams that are better, fading teams that are bad in their current situations. Wisconsin, -4.5 for 1.1 units. Syracuse, -1. George Mason, -2. Wisconsin, -4.5. 3 bets for us here on a Tuesday as we go with short numbers here on a Tuesday, trying to get back here, okay? So 1-2 yesterday, down day to start the week. Let's bounce back here. Let's have a 2-1 day or better, maybe a 3-0 sweep to get ourselves into a good position here as we go on for the week. My name is Matt Perrault. Follow me across all socials at Sports Talk Matt. Every morning, Daily Juice Podcast, always being brought to you by OmahaSteaks.com.